As always, a pleasure once again to be joined by Elias Theodorou. Elias, what's behind you? Is that like new artwork? Like, where are you?
I'm in Montreal, and today or this week, I've been staying at the Comfort Inn. So, a nice little king suite I got here,
Oh,
living
very nice.
LRG. No complaints.
You had a place in Montreal, if I'm not mistaken, or you were looking at buying another place in Montreal.
Basically, I was renting before, and then now because I'm getting ready for camp, which we could talk about but not talk about, it's very confusing. I signed my contract like a month ago, so life's confusing. But the more important thing, I'm just kind of doing Airbnbs and whatnot because I'll be fighting sooner rather than later. So I'm actually going to buy a place after the next fight, whenever that is.
So obviously the very cryptic answer. I know you can't talk about it just yet. Why is it that what do you feel the UFC is taking so long to announce it, and why won't they let you say something?
Well, I think it's just more, they have a lot going on, and I think there are certain fights that are happening beforehand. So I won't be fighting, let's say, on Madison Square Garden because, well, it kind of works out because I never want to fight in New York, but everyone's got a price, but that's neither here nor there. Point being, uh, again, they have all these other events that they're putting together. They're very reactionary to begin with, and not to mention the other forest fires they have to put out.
Well, speaking of forest fires, oh, by the way, so you said you signed your contract. So has your opponent signed the contract?
I assume.
Oh my, you don't
I,
even know yet?
I actually just messaged my management being like, so fight? It's confusing.
It's
But
confusing.
I would assume. I believe the person wants to fight because it might be in their hometown. Who knows? So it's neither here nor there.
So by you saying that, it's not in Canada the next fight.
No, it's not in Canada. Definitely not in Canada.
Oh, week by week, you are giving us a little inch by inch, in inch. I think I know who it may be, but whatever. It is what it is.
That's because I told you.
Okay, yes, yeah. And I'm sticking by the embargo. I don't want to get you in trouble, me in trouble, but it should be fun. It'll be a challenge. I think. I mean, we can't look at this next opponent and say it's a cakewalk. There are no cakewalks in the UFC.
For sure. There's a reason why everyone's in there.
All right. You mentioned the UFC potentially has to put out fires. When the Jon Jones news first came out,
Mm-hmm.
I came out and I said, "Look, I mean, I'm maybe I'm too Canadian. I give people the benefit of the doubt, despite the fact that history has said that this guy has cheated, has done this, has done that." I'm like, let's. It's a different scenario. It's a different situation. I know it may be similar to the past, but let's see what happens because none of these mathematics made sense to me that he would potentially fail something when he knew he was going to be tested 24 to 48 hours later. When you first heard the news, and then we'll get into the fact of what's happening now, but when you first heard the news, what went through your mind?
Just say it ain't so. Because that just one of those things where, especially because of everyone loves a comeback story, and his performance was amazing, and the fact that he, supposedly has his shit together in many different regards. It just, it unfortunately was a situation where you kind of, at this point, just based on baseball rules, three strikes are out in regards to how many times you can really give someone the benefit of the doubt. And especially when you compound the fact that he has been suspended for 3 years of his career at this point. And last time there was smoke, and this time there's literally fire. Again, the dick pills I could believe. Even though the thing that was found in there is an expensive thing, and people they don't usually put it by accident. This is something that you would market that you have in there, and the purpose is an anti-estrogen blocker, which is the example of someone that used to use steroids and is making sure they don't get bitch tits. That's what it really is for. Again, the America's a little bit of the Wild West when it comes to supplements, so you could kind of the scary thing and why I have everything certified is the idea proprietary blend is what they have, which means it could have up to 30% of so that's never anything you want. And especially, again, why Jones has been talking, like one of the interesting things that he said to DC in the build up for this last fight and the fight before that, he's got 10, 20 million bucks in the bank. And I think it goes back to why I think all of us are more disappointed because of all the stupid mistakes. If I was Jon Jones and I liked to party as much as he did and I was still kicking ass, I would take my best friend and be like, hey, I'm going to pay you $100,000 a year. You're going to drive me everywhere I want. I'm not going to drive. I wouldn't drive myself. You know, if I wanted a bunch of dick pills, I would go to my doctor. I wouldn't get it from a gas station because they have dick pills at gas stations, which are full of steroids and random proprietary blends. And again, if I was, you know, addicted to substances, because that's what I think with Jones, the bigger issue is he's addicted to substances, whether it's drinking, cocaine, marijuana, or anything else. He's addicted to the feeling. Again, it goes into the personality, what makes him such a badass in the octagon. And I think slowly but surely, he removed all the legal substances and illegal substances in regards to all the fun that he was having outside. And now that he's a changed man, I think allegedly he might have switched to a different substance. And again, it all has to do with the people that are around you. If someone says, you know, take this, no one will ever find you, find out, and you take it, you kind of put the hope in their knowledge. And again, this is not one of the top line stuff. This is also one of the stacked things that could be in it. So, you know, going back to the original question, I was upset, not even mad, you know, like not mad, disappointed, and kind of just expected Jones is going to Jones. You know what I mean? Like at this point, he's a bad motherfucker, pardon my French. And it's just one of those situations where, you know, he's the best to ever do it. But now there's definitely an asterisk there because the person you have to feel the most sorry for is DC, who's beaten everyone except for someone that's now cheated twice, allegedly.
So, I mean, and looking at the latest headlines and the latest news stories coming out with this and the latest reports, it's far more confusing because even the California State Athletic Commissioner, Annie Foster, is like, this doesn't make sense. Like, none of this is making sense. Now, I've had people tell me, Joe, you need to give it up. Jon Jones has always been a cheater. He'll always be a cheater. He'll always try and figure out ways to cheat. He got to the top by cheating, although he's got this natural skill set. I've had other people saying, look, man, it's the people around him. To me, it always boils down to the individual. You're the individual who's got to make that decision to determine what is right for me. Am I cheating? Am I not cheating? What is right for my family, my kids, and you know, at some point, you know, in the game of martial arts, we do have to have some sort of honor. Not everyone has it, but you got to have honor with yourself. Now, I'm more or less confused here because when you take a look at how this all went down and whatever he may have taken, should he have taken anything, and whatever he failed on this test here, he knew he was going to be tested within 24 to 48 hours. So why take something unless, like you're kind of hinting at, was something more of an abusive, or not abusive, more of a addictive personality, likes the high of whatever he likes, to whatever substance he may like, and they're like, well, you know what, this isn't, let's just for argument's sake say it's not cocaine or it's not coke. This is, but you'll get the same high, you'll get the same rush. This is all weird, man.
No, exactly it. And from what I've learned, or what I've learned about turinabol or whatever it's called, it's like, for lack of a better word, a pre-workout on steroids. So it, again, and with the blood test, obviously they don't actually test for that specific substance. So even though he has a new one, the real more important thing is the B sample. The B sample is going to come back, and if that is negative, then this whole thing's messed up. But the issue being, I really think it is just a transition on what substance he's been abusing. I think if you look back at the suspension that he had, that is where his body and transformation happened at its biggest, the biggest difference. There, you can find it online where there's a picture of him with his hips like this and then him jacked or whatever like that. Because when you're suspended, they don't actually test you. So I think when he was suspended, I think he just transitioned it, allegedly, into a different addictive substance.
When you look at this type of scenario, you're a human being. I'm a human being. We all have feelings. We all have emotions. We all have our own stresses, our own lives to deal with. Jon Jones was on top of the world. He lost everything. Got a chance to come back, back on top of the world, and said he suffered so much during that absence that he then realized, quote unquote, what it was like to be on top and how to lose all these massive sponsorships and major money and blah, 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 that he would never do it again. He was sorry. He was this, he was that, and blah, blah. And then, like you said, the news comes out and it's like, oh my goodness, now, I mean, how do you look yourself in the mirror, your family, your kids, your parents, your relatives? I know he's got 2 brothers in the NFL that are super rich. So, I mean, Sean Ross Sapp said, no way, Joe, he's going to be fine. And I'm like, dude, I don't know how fine you can be when you failed this again, and potentially failed this again. I mean, I legit feel bad for the guy because I don't see the story ending very well.
You know, yes, but you know, his brothers also failed for substances. So it's not like, again, who do you think he's talking to, allegedly? Like, again, it runs in the family in regards to athletics and who everyone's talking to. I think that the conversation is not something that he's not having. I think he's talking to people around him, and you are the accumulation of those you surround yourself with, for better or worse. And unfortunately, the worst thing kind of showed up. His other brother failed for synthetic marijuana as well, or had an allergic reaction, but that's because for whatever reason they test for marijuana. But the crazy thing is with that substance, it's essentially bath salts. It's not anything like marijuana. It's synthetic marijuana, which gave him an allergic reaction. So his family's tested as well and failed for things as well. So it's not like it's the first time in the Jones family. It's just the way our sport's structured. It's not 1 or 2 games that you miss and the union swipes it under the rug. No, he might get the book thrown at him and it's 4 years suspension.
Yeah, that's insane. He's I mean, I don't even want to fathom that. Anyways, speaking of guys who don't like synthetic marijuana, guys who like the real stuff, Nate Diaz, CBDs, THC, whatever it is, he's a huge proponent. Him and his brother are huge proponents. And I mentioned Nate Diaz because that was the name that Conor McGregor blurted out when asked what potentially could be next for him. Conor McGregor is all about the money fights. And right now, I believe he thinks that Nate Diaz, the trilogy fight, is the ultimate money fight in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I thought for sure perhaps Khabib Nurmagomedov was going to be a big fight as well because kid's got a huge social media following, maybe not in North America, but globally, it's huge. When it comes to Conor McGregor, do you believe it's all about the money fights? And will that trilogy with Nate Diaz likely be it, despite Nate saying, I need 10 figures?
Yeah. Well, again, I think that's a bargaining chip. You ask for 20 million, you get somewhere in between, you're not complaining. I think it makes sense, the trilogy fight. I think that's the biggest fight there is. Because again, you got to throw in the factor that tiramisu and the fact that his body is shut down in a couple of times. So do you bank it on someone that might be huge in Russia and in part of the world, and definitely true, but someone that might not make 155? There's a reason why him and Ferguson have never fought, and 2 of those 3 times are because of Khabib. So there's that. And Nate is, for all his pros and cons, you could definitely say he's a competitor through and through, and he'll make 155. And I think that's the trilogy and the money fight because of the bad blood. And again, close second fight. You could have gone either way. So I think it makes sense that it becomes a trilogy.
Gotcha. What's next for you, boss?
Well, I have a lot of running around. I'm here for the next 2 days. Then I come back for a TIFF event in Toronto. Then I'll fly on Friday back quickly to come watch TKO and a couple of my buddies fighting on TKO. Then fly back to Toronto to watch a couple of buddies fight at BTC. And then a bunch of running around here and there and kicking ass everywhere in between.
And I thought my schedule was packed. Well, listen, we thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to so much more from you.
Pleasure's all mine, my brother, and me too.